It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set!
Just call me Swanny.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle. Once again, it is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400, the Midlands, heard around the world, on the iHeartRadio app, and on the program today. Brad Owens, Director of Baseball Operations up at Clemson, our good buddy. The Tigers come off of another series victory over Northeastern this weekend. Clemson, however, loses for the first time a ball game on the diamond this year. 5-3 on Sunday, but nonetheless, a 14-game streak to start the season, and the Tigers are 14-1. What a start. Here's Monty Lee talking to the team post-game.
Yeah, it hurts to lose a game, right? It's your first one of the season, and we're 15 games in. Guys, I'm so freaking proud of where we're at. Look at where we're at. Pretty dang impressive. Pretty dang impressive. Special group of guys sitting right here. Guys have done some great things up to this point, okay? But here's the thing about it. Now there's a new week, right? Got a new week ahead of it.
Again, that's Clemson head coach Monty Lee after the Tigers' 14-0 start gets broken, the best since 1992. After Northeastern wins 5-3, the Tigers will be back on the diamond tomorrow at 6 o'clock when they host Georgia State. Without further ado, our buddy, Brad Owens, Director of Baseball Operations at Clemson, joins us. Brad, big guy, hope you're well, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's always my pleasure to have you, and glad to start another year off.
I tell you what, talking about starting the year off, huh? I mean, you've been around this Clemson Tiger program for a long time. What was this 14-0 run like for not only the guys, but also the staff kind of watching it unfold?
No, it's definitely been, this is my 15th season, and definitely one of the most remarkable starts as we have. I think it was back in 1992 was the last time we've done something like this. But, you know, if I'm being honest, I really don't know if there was a ton of talk about it. You know, there was more talk when you run into people out in the public and, you know, family members and that kind of thing that keep bringing it up. But I think it tells a lot of the type of team that we have. You know, our guys, I'll be very open and say it's not the most talented team we've ever had, but it's probably the most tight-knit team that I think I've been a part of at Clemson. And, you know, they kind of just go about their business each and every day. And Coach Lee's done a great job, and all our staff of, you know, really just, you know, keeping that windshield mentality and just really, you know, focusing on that day. And honestly, you know, we've gotten off to a great start, and the guys have been having a ton of fun. But I think that fun has come from just having fun that day. You know, whatever is that day, whatever our goal is that day, you know, that's what we're there to do. So overall, I really wouldn't say that, you know, there's a big, you know, hoopla of, you know, our record, but it's more of just coming and just doing what we do and know, you know, what we know best. And, you know, so far it's worked. So hopefully we can put yesterday behind us and just, you know, continue to take that mentality, you know, as we continue on.
Brad, one of the things we had Coach Lee on a couple of weeks ago, and I know he said this in his preseason press conference with the media, was about being, you know, player-led this year and really letting having a core group of guys who are really at the forefront of leading this team. And it's not to say that in the past there haven't been leaders. It's not to say that hadn't been a philosophy that Coach Lee has used, but have you specifically seen some differences just from the standpoint of maybe these guys, you know, motivating their team members maybe a little more so than in the past?
Yeah, I think that is spot on. I mean, and it's little things too. I'm responsible for all of our meals pregame, and And even some of the guys, some of the older guys, somebody told me one time the longer you're in a program, the more you should do, rather than the longer you're in a program, the less you should do, and let those, younger guys make them pay their dues, so to speak. But I've seen those older guys, Max Wagner, I know, even though he's only a sophomore, he has taken that jump as, being a leader and a servant. And Jackson Lindley is another one of those guys. Jackson's a part of our leadership council. I think we have 6 guys that our players vote on, and it's seeing some of those veteran guys like Jackson Lindley, Briar Hawkins, and, even a couple of grad transfers like Tyler Corbett and Ben Blackwell, having some of that experience just to mesh well with some of the guys that have been in our program. I mean, they're cleaning up around the kitchen. I mean, they're taking care of their own house, as we like to call it. And, I think those little things lead onto the field, and, hopefully the results on the field will lead to, our bigger goals as well. But I've been very, very proud of those guys of, just doing those little things and coaching up some younger players. Even at breakfast, you overhear some of those conversations. So I'm excited to see what's in store for this team. And, so far, so good.
He is the director of baseball operations at Clemson. Brad Owens joining us here on a Monday afternoon. Again, Clemson falling for the first time this weekend in their final game against Northeastern. And I'll ask you finally about that. We kind of knew that this Northeastern team was going to be scrappy given the results that they had sweeping NC State. Man, what was your takeaway from this group after having witnessed them in person?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, we knew the type of team that we had coming in. They're predicted to win the Colonial Athletic Conference this year. We know what kind of coach Coach Glavin is, and their pitching staff. I mean, we knew they were going to come in and they were going to just challenge us and come right at us. I thought we did a really good job on Friday and Saturday of, taking advantage of 2-out hits, 2-out RBIs, having some team at bats. And then yesterday, we knew that they weren't just going to lay down. I think a lot of teams, maybe some teams that, might not be the strongest teams put together. They might have laid down after they got beat the first 2 games, but we knew that they weren't. We knew we stressed that all day, all preseason, just trying to pregame, just trying to, make sure we keep that focus. But they're a scrappy team. They're going to win a lot of ball games. I know that. And if they pitch like they did yesterday, I mean, I've told everyone I've talked to, just the outing that Wyatt Scotty had yesterday. Like, if there's a better pitching outing out there, I don't want any part of it, because he was hitting the spots. He had a change up that was diving down like a split finger. He was throwing to lefties and righties, and they just flat out beat us. And we knew that they were going to come at us. So, but I didn't think that. Yeah, we didn't play a perfect game, but at the same time, they played better than we did yesterday, and they've got a great season ahead of them.
The Tigers are back on the diamond tomorrow at 6:00 as they take on Georgia State. Clemson now up in the rankings at number 15. I know that you guys aren't focused on that, but I can't imagine that there's not a little bit of excitement around this ball club right now, especially given the way the season unfolded a year ago, and to really feel like, hey, an upward I can't even say the word trajectory, if you will, just from the standpoint of kind of getting back to what Clemson baseball has been for a long time.
Yeah, it's definitely a special place, and I just learned something. I had no idea what the rankings were today, so glad to hear that they're getting noticed. They're getting some respect. I have no idea, but I think that's kind of what our team's about. We hadn't really been talking about it, and I think Coach Lee's done a great job, and our whole staff, from the pitching side to the defense side, to have those team at bats, do those little things, work on the double plays. We've Coach LaCroix and Coach Lee, they're out there all the time timing double plays, and heck, it's paid off. We've turned some big double plays, but I think that's the type of team we have. Just doing those little things right, and getting Clemson baseball back. We haven't really talked about last year much. Obviously, it was a huge disappointment. It was a different season, playing 2 extra ACC games, playing 6 less, or really 12 less non-conference games. So I don't know if we're comparing apples to apples, but regardless, it was not the season that we wanted to have there. So, but again, we have some guys that aren't here anymore. We have a new set of guys, and they've, again, taken that windshield mentality, looking straight ahead, learning a little bit from the past, just trying to make it better. And again, we're Clemson baseball. That's a program that should be called Clemson baseball across the country and get people's attention. And I still think if we do those little things right, that it'll continue to do that.
On Twitter, he's at Brad Owens 41, not only the director of baseball operations at Clemson, but also a former Warhorse, much like myself, from the big city of Barnwell. And, with that, the state of South Carolina and college baseball in general tends to revolve around the Tigers and the Gamecocks. And just a couple of weekends ago, you guys had a 3-game sweep of South Carolina. I'm sure that was special for you as being a sandlapper yourself, but more importantly for this team. We didn't get a chance to talk about it at all last week, but, what does that mean to you guys when you pull off a feat like that against your arch rival?
Yeah, it's a great thing. I grew up a Clemson fan, and I'm not going to say I'm one of those Clemson fans, that would just despise South Carolina, because I have a ton of respect for their program. I was actually texting with their operations guy last night because they had a huge weekend this weekend against Texas. So I was super happy for them. But it was exciting for me to see guys like Ryan Ammons on the mound Friday night closing out the game. That's a South Carolina native from Wren High School that grew up in the middle of South Carolina Clemson rivalry, and for those local guys especially to be able to go out there, have success, and pull out of Columbia with 2 W's. That's hard to do to begin with, but it's pretty special, and that's something that it doesn't always happen. So I was just super happy for our whole team. They enjoyed it. They came back to Clemson. They knew they had business to finish, and they were able to do it. So I wish those guys nothing but the best. But I do have to say that when you have success and seeing our guys like that from the state of South Carolina achieve those goals, that's what it's all about.
Well, and it's also kind of funny because unlike the fans, right? The fans will be fine if South Carolina doesn't win another game, but you guys obviously are interested in I guess the ratings and the rankings and what it all looks like at the end of the year, because they're going to evaluate you off of who your wins were against. So anytime South Carolina does what they did last weekend against Texas, you get that helps you. It doesn't hurt you. And you guys have a heck of a slate forthcoming. The Atlantic Coast Conference looks like it's going to be one of the top leagues once again. And, when you're kind of looking down the line, Coach Lee said, hey, we don't really pay attention to all that. We just focus on the next team at hand. But you're a guy that's got to schedule these trips. Brad, what's coming up on the docket for Clemson? I mean, when you look out long-term, what did you make of Clemson's regular season Atlantic Coast Conference foes?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's just, we opened up technically Atlantic Coast Conference play this weekend. Of the 10 weekends, there's 11 weekends left. Our open weekend was the first weekend, which I do like, but being able to watch some of those teams this weekend, watch some of your counterparts teams that so well, go to extra innings, really have some Boston College knocking off Miami Friday night, then Miami coming right back, and just being able to see some of those guys. We have a fresh face, fresh teams and fresh faces that, they come to Clemson for that reason. And that's to play in the ACC. So I wouldn't say that they don't know what's coming, but I think they do know, the caliber that they're going to have to play at. And I don't really think we change anything. I think that's what our staff has done so well is, no matter who we're playing, I've been excited to even Saturday, they scored, I think 6 of the 8 offensive innings. So, just to try to keep that foot on the gas pedal and, really continue to play your style of baseball, not to try to do anything different just because it's the ACC. So I'm excited to see the bunch, but we've got our work cut out. Yeah, I'm probably 3 or 4 weekends ahead of what's next, just in a planning standpoint. But, I was working on Pittsburgh today and, looking at Notre Dame stuff. But I don't know if Coach Lee knows who we're playing Friday. He's focused on tomorrow. But that's the way it should be, and that's my job to take care of everything else. So I'm excited to see them get into league play, and again, that's what they come here for, and hopefully we can play our best baseball, each and every weekend.
Brad, I want to ask you, I guess this is more of like a personal from the job perspective for you. How difficult was navigating the COVID-19, possible scheduling deal that you guys were dealing with a year ago, things of that nature? I mean, was that more, I can't remember if you had too many that you had to move around or not, but did it feel more daunting kind of having that looking over your shoulder, so to speak?
It definitely was always hanging over your head. It made some things a little bit more challenging. We had to take 2 buses. I had to be strategic of who's sitting behind, the side, in front of on the bus, who's rooming with who, that kind of thing. But at the same time, I think it taught us a lot of valuable lessons too, of just having to be patient, having to be on your toes for change, because you never knew when a game was going to get canceled. You never knew when a player was going to test positive, a staff member was going to test positive. So, for me, I kind of was like, you're on your toes the whole time. Like, okay, we're gonna go now. So it's just one of those things. But it was also good for our players, because if Brad Owens, your pitcher, tests positive, well, it's the next man up, or your shortstop, or your catcher. So it made our younger guys, I think, kind of have to be more locked in, rather than just kind of, well, Jonathan French, Cooper Ingle's gonna, they're gonna be our catchers, and Reed Garris might be not as quite as locked in. That's definitely not the case, but it made you learn to adjust and learn how to adapt to change, and just be ready for, really, no pun intended, but all the curveballs that were coming your way.
Brad Owens, Director of Baseball Operations up at Clemson University, here with us for just a couple of more minutes. Brad, let's talk about a couple of names you've mentioned. First, I want to start with Cooper Ingle. His start to the season, I mean, just simply, he's been on fire.
Yeah, we knew. Obviously, we didn't really get to see him catch his full stride last year, I think. But I was sitting with Mac England last Friday in the cages at South Carolina on Friday morning. We took the guys over just to kind of stretch out and just kind of get out of the hotel. And he's hitting in the cage in front of us. And he's like, Brad, I've pitched to a lot of hitters, but I've never pitched to a guy with that good to bat the ball skills as Cooper Ingle. So, I think we're going to figure out exactly where to put him in that lineup. So he's dangerous, and he just has fun up there. Even the takes, watch his takes when it is a ball. Watch how locked in he is, seeing that pitch back. And but he's just a fun. You never know what he's going to do. He might slap one over third base or hit it in the Cajun Cafe. So just an unbelievable talent, and just more power to him. Hopefully, he does it all year long.
But how about Benjamin Blackwell, the transfer that comes in, and not only, I would probably make the argument some of the plays I've seen him make in the field are as good as anything I've seen him do on the, at the plate. But man, a graduate student from Dayton, and just really has been delivering for you guys. I guess, as you would say, what is it? Is it officially both sides of the ball? How do you call it when you're talking about the
It's a good question. I was trying to reference something like, I guess you'd say both sides of the ball. I don't know. When you got, unlike football, you don't really have a linebacker playing on offense too. But
right.
But regardless, yeah, he's been. I mean, the first pitch you ever saw in a Clemson uniform in a game, he hit a home run. So I just thought that was just so fitting for him. But he's got a few errors in the season. But what shortstop doesn't, right? If they do, they're going to be a first-round draft pick. But he gets to more balls than have more chances at than a lot of regular players. But just the leadership that he's brought. I mentioned him earlier. Just him and Tyler Corbett. Just bringing some of those at bats, some of those innings that they've played. To this team, even though they didn't play him. At Clemson. I think it's been invaluable, and just an unbelievable kid. He probably has the best shoe game on the whole team. So he definitely has some style in the shoe game category, but on and off the field, he is as good as they come.
Well, and he is a man that knows about fashion, Brad Owens. I guarantee you that. The guys, you know all about it, Brad.
Just trying to keep up with him. He maybe encourages me a little bit, and keeps me in check, but not as young as I was. So you got to just try to keep up with these young kids.
There we go. Brad Owens, Director of Baseball Operations, and of course, a former Barnwell Warhorse as well. Brad, buddy, always appreciate your time. Hope your family's well. Can't wait to chat with you real soon.
Always my pleasure. Look forward to it.
Again, Brad Owens, Director of Baseball Operations up at Clemson University. Coming up in hour 2, William Qualkenbush will join the program. Plus, we'll talk NCAA basketball as the Virginia Tech Hokies bring home the ACC crown. That's right, the same Virginia Tech team that barely squeaked by Clemson. This is what I was talking about last week. Like, I'm not telling you Clemson would have, could have, or would have done this, but man, wouldn't you have liked the shot? Wouldn't you have wanted the chance? Instead, the Tigers still another team without an ACC crown all time, and the rest of those are teams that are fairly new in the league, but mark Virginia Tech off of that list as they got the JOBDONE. Plus, we'll talk about the brackets and some news out of Columbia with their basketball head coach situation. All that and more coming up here on the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk. With a quick break. Stay with us. Back at it on a beautiful Monday afternoon. A little chilly. I can't believe, it wasn't that long ago, folks, we were wearing like shorts in 85, and then this weekend I'm firing up the heater and wondering why I cut off the gas fireplace before this weekend. But man, it was chilly. We had soccer. It was cold, rainy. Unfortunately, it wasn't cold and rainy on the day of soccer. That was a positive. But yeah, a weird weather event here over the past couple of days. And I'm hopeful that this will be the end and we'll start to move towards some good warm weather. 803-450-0086. But again, in the Atlantic Coast Conference and in other leagues across the country, it was the beginning of tournament time. And Virginia Tech secures a berth. You know, they went into the ACC tournament with questions around whether or not they could make the NCAA tournament. Well, Mike Young, in his third year, the former Wofford head coach, says, forget that. We're just going to stamp it with a gobble. And the Hokies are in after winning the ACC tournament, defeating Duke on Saturday, handily defeating Duke. And look, I'd love to tell you I'm shocked, but the way Virginia Tech has been playing as of late, the confidence, I am not. But I'm still frustrated because I think they were 10-2 in their last 12 games, and they should have been 9-3, and 2 of those losses should have come to Clemson. And I'm not telling you Clemson would be dancing, but the Tigers aren't even in the NIT at this point. But that's what I was saying last week, and I mentioned it a few minutes ago. I just want to see Clemson get the shot. Like, just see the Tigers get the chance to pull off that feat. And I didn't think that Clemson would have beaten Notre Dame when the Tigers got there, but I wanted the shot. The Virginia Tech did. And then they go on and they win the whole tournament. And so now when you look at the Atlantic Coast Conference tournament, all time, the ACC tournament champions, all time, Clemson, again, the only longtime member that has never won the championship. It took Notre Dame, I think, 3 years to win a championship in the league. Florida State got one. Notre Dame came in 2013 and won the championship in 2015. They only have one, but they won it. Miami came in 2004. They won the championship 9 years later in 2013. Florida State came in 1991. They won the championship in 2012. And Virginia Tech came in 2004 and ends up winning it in 2022, 18 years later. Louisville's been in the league since 2014, just 8 years, no titles. Syracuse been in the league since 2013, 9 years, no titles. Pittsburgh, same, 9 years, no titles. Boston College, 17 years, no titles. Clemson, 69 seasons, no titles. The Tigers have been in the league since 1953 when it was founded. No championships. By the way, of the founding teams in the league, only South Carolina, who hasn't been in the league since 1971, has a singular title. Every other member from the original conference, 21 at Duke, 18 at North Carolina, 10 at NC State, 4 at Georgia Tech, 4 at Wake Forest, 3 at Virginia, 3 at Maryland. The only other team that founded the league. And for that matter, Georgia Tech didn't join until 78, so they don't even count as a founding member. But, you know, I told you about this Atlantic Coast Conference tournament deal I've been watching. I mean, where do you put that? Like, what an embarrassment that is just over the long haul of Clemson Tiger basketball. I'm not just talking about this year and this season and the way things played out for this team or what the future might hold. I'm just talking about in general, for 69, going on 70 years now, Clemson's basketball ineptitude. Just comparing it, there is no comparison in the league to what else has happened. Maryland hadn't been in the league since 2004. They hadn't been in the league in nearly 20 years. They had 3 titles. I mean, come on, man. 803-450-0086. 803-450-0086. According to reports, South Carolina head coach Frank Martin has been fired after 10 seasons. An official announcement expected soon. Martin, of course, got South Carolina to their school's first Final Four appearance back in 2017. Martin, however, finishes his career 171 and 147 overall. The Gamecocks finished in the top half of the SEC in 3 of the last 4 seasons, but were above 500 in conference play just 4 times during Martin's 10-year tenure. The Gamecocks apparently going to cut ties with Frank Martin after 10 years. Again, the Gamecocks this season 18-13, 9-9 in the SEC, and still have a Final Four appearance under his belt. Let me tell you, that is as good as South Carolina can expect, in my estimation, in terms of, basketball, a Final Four appearance. And this guy got one, and they cut ties with him. Brad Brownell doesn't have anything close to that in his resume in 12 years. What will Clemson do? Will the Tigers stick with Brad Brownell? Listen, our Kaufman's fan poll, and there have been coaches fired all over the country, folks. Teams been firing coaches like I change hats. Call your shot. Does Clemson make a head coaching change in basketball at the end of the season? This is the Kaufman's fan poll. These changes are coming in quickly. Currently, 67% say yes, but we wait. And again, I said this the other day. I don't know the right answer. If I ask you, well, who could you get better? Your response could very easily be, well, who could you get worse? And I'm sure I can dig up some worse names because Brad Brownell does do a good job from the standpoint of coaching these guys. There's some sets at the end of that game against Virginia where I'm just overly impressed. But then you also have these moments where you're befuddled by what transpires with some of the decisions you're making. So, I don't know. It's a weird one. But according to reports, Frank Martin out in Columbia. Stay with us. It is Clemson Sports Talk on a Monday afternoon. Lawton Swan with you, the show that shakes the Southland. Hang out with us on our website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. We certainly appreciate that, where for just $63.17. That's right, Gamecock Nation. I said it, $63.17. You can support us and join and get the inside scoop and exclusive interviews that we put up for you. 803-450-0086, and it was a big recruiting weekend in Clemson. We'll get to some of that coming up in just a little bit. But again, the Clemson Tiger baseball team, a 14-1 start to the year. They finally fell yesterday. I guess when I say it, I should say it like this. They finally fell yesterday, 5-2 against Northeastern, and the Tigers will play tomorrow at 6 o'clock against Georgia State as the Panthers and Tigers hook up. And it has been a heck of a run so far. They'll also have a 3-game series with the Miami Hurricanes, as Brad Owens, Director of Baseball Operations, mentioned a little bit ago. Coming up in hour number 2, William Qualkenbush joins us, and it is tourney time. The brackets are out. Sort of. This is the day I get to have my yearly rant about the fact that I hate the first 4. I hate the play-in games, and I think they should be eliminated immediately. I can't even bring myself to start thinking about a bracket. Like I've been doing a bracket with some guys from my hometown, not my contemporaries in age, some guys that are older than me. This guy was my neighbor. And like when I was 13 or 14 or whatever, somehow he asked if I wanted to be in this little pick'em pool. And so I did it. I've been in it ever since, like 32 years, like longer than Tom Brady was retired. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in just a little bit as well. But I've been doing this pick 'em for like 32 years, and it was always so easy because after the conference tournaments were done and Selection Sunday went down, well, what was next? Oh, I don't know. Fill out my bracket. Take a look at it on a Monday. Take a look at it on a Tuesday. Just be ready by noon on Thursday. And still, you have the right to wait until noon or 11:45 on Thursday to make your picks. The problem is I can't bring myself to make these picks, and I have never made these picks until the final 64 teams were set. I just can't in my right mind pick a game and not know who the team that's playing is. I won't do it. And I don't care if you believe that a 16 seed is never going to win the tournament or never going to win a game against the number one if they were a play-in team. Even though we've seen University of Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC knock off Virginia. Like, to me, I can't pick the Wright State Bryant game until I know for sure who's playing Arizona. Like, I got to know. I can't do Texas Southern or Texas A&M Community College until I know. Like, I can tell you I think Kansas is going to win, right? And I should probably go ahead and pick it. But there's something about it for me. It's sort of a one of the superstitious kind of thing. Like, I feel like if I pick that in advance, I've got a greater chance of missing it. Like, how do you pick St. Mary's versus Wyoming and or Indiana today? How do you do that? I don't know that you can. Even if you are 100% in belief that St. Mary's is going to win that game, if Indiana were to be in there, I don't know that that's going to be an absolute certainty. Or Alabama, they're going to take on the winner of Rutgers and Notre Dame. How do you pick that for a certainty in advance? I can't. I have to know, is Alabama playing Rutgers or is Alabama playing Notre Dame? And until we're down to 64, I can't make these picks. I'm uncomfortable with it. I am uncomfortable with it. But you do you. If you feel comfortable just running through it, go for it. The top seeds in the tournament, Gonzaga, Arizona, Kansas, and Baylor. Can the Zags zig their way to a national title? Because they've yet to be able to pull it off. Baylor, of course, your defending national champion. The Final Four will be held in New Orleans on April the 2nd, with the championship game played on Monday, April the 4th. It is the first time we have had a, quote, normal tournament since 2019, with teams playing in front of packed crowds in 8 cities the first weekend. Then to 4 different destinations for the Sweet 16 before finally hitting the Big Easy for the Final Four. Coach Mike Krzyzewski and the Duke Blue Devils will be playing in Coach K's final tournament, which will be in the West bracket, but fortunately because of regionalized pairings in the opening rounds, Mike Krzyzewski's Blue Devils will be playing in the Upstate, one of 8 teams that will play at Bon Secours Wellness Arena in the first round. Duke, who is the number 2 seed, will take on Cal State Fullerton, the 15 seed. The winner of that matchup will take on the winner of Michigan State and Davidson, who are in the 7-10 ball game in the West region. But again, those 2 ball games will be played in Greenville. The other pairing will be a number 2 seeded Auburn team who is taking on the 15th seed Jacksonville State. The Auburn Tigers, by the way, are 27-5. And then they will take on the winner of that game will take on the winner of the 7 seed Southern Cal, who will be battling against the 10th seeded Miami Hurricanes. So that's a look at the brackets in the upstate. We'll hit a break and put a bow on hour one next. Final segment of hour number one, the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk. Law and Swan with you, William Qualkenbush. Coming up around the bend, again, we mentioned the Clemson Tiger baseball team. 3-game series this weekend. They win 2 out of the 3, 9-6 on Friday, 10-4 on Saturday, and fall 5-3 on Sunday against Northeastern. The Tigers do move up in the polls to number 15, and they have their first loss of the year after a 14-0 start. Here's Monty Lee talking about the team after their first loss of the season.
What a great baseball game today by Northeastern. I thought their starter, Wyatt Scotty, he was really tough. He had 3 pitches that he commanded very, very well. He got deep in the game and just thought he did an outstanding job. I actually thought we pitched pretty well today. I thought we gave ourselves a chance. We just had a couple miscues on defense. We had a couple errors that led to 2 runs, but look, we're not going to play perfect defense all year. I mean, we're going to make some errors, and when you're playing a team like Northeastern, who puts a lot of balls in play, they're very hard to strike out. You got to make plays on defense with runners on base, and we just simply made a couple of mistakes today, physical mistakes, and that was the difference in the game. But they clearly outplayed us today. They pitched a little bit better than we did. They won the free 90 battle. Defensively, they were a little bit better than we were. We made it interesting. In the last 9 outs of the game, we hit a couple solo home runs, brought the tying run to the plate in the 9th inning. And, all in all, we found a way to try to put ourselves in a position to tie the game. But ultimately, their pitching was just impressive today. They were the better team today, and they won the game. Very proud of my team, though. To be sitting 15 games into the season, sitting at 14-1. I don't think there's anybody in the country that would have said that the Clemson Tigers would be sitting at 14-1, 15 games into the season. So I'm really proud of my club and what we've been able to do up to this point. And we've won a lot of games in a lot of different ways. Today we just, we weren't the better team today, and Northeastern won the game.
I'll start personally. I've been struggling a little bit early in the count, missing some pitches. So I went back to kind of simplifying everything, just getting the foot down, seeing the ball deep, kind of getting the barrel to it. Credit to their guy. I mean, he had 3 pitches working in his zone, and he really kept everybody off balance. I think the key for me was that I kind of did it early in the count, didn't let it get to 2 strikes. So I think that was a big thing today, is just he had 3 pitches working.
That was Monty Lee and Tyler Corbett talking about Clemson's loss to Northeastern. Again, Clemson will continue their homestand, hosting Georgia State tomorrow, 6 o'clock. That'll be on the ACC Network Extra, and then they've got their first Atlantic Coast Conference tournament, or their first Atlantic Coast Conference series coming up this weekend against the Miami Hurricanes. Friday's matchup on the ACC Network Extra package at 6 o'clock. Saturday on the ACC Network Extra at 3. And Sunday, ACC Network Extra at 1 o'clock. So that's what you're looking at for Clemson over the next few days as they get into Atlantic Coast Conference play to open things up against the Miami Hurricanes. 803-450-0086, 803-450-0086. And what a start to the year it has been for this Clemson Tiger baseball team. It's funny because we played the audio earlier of Monty Lee talking to the guys after the game, and the feeling in what you hear is that the team must have been pretty, majorly disappointed in the loss. But the reality is, man, to do what they've done to open the year, through what, a quarter of the season, 2/3 of the season, whatever the numbers, whatever it bears out. Let me see. I think it's about a quarter of the year. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not only have they been sharp, I mean, look at the runs they've given up. I mean, that's the other thing, right? No runs, 4 runs, 4 runs, 1-1, 3-3, 5-2, 2-2, 2, 6-4, and 5 this weekend against Northeastern. I mean, that's been the real bump up in the runs scored or the runs yielded for Clemson. I mean, outside of that, they've been sharp. And that's one of those things where you can continue to pitch like that and play well defensively. They're going to be a tough out for anybody. And that's really what you want to become, a thorn in somebody's side. You want to become a thorn in someone's side because there is no doubt in my mind when you just talk about this team from the standpoint of confidence, they're feeling really good right now. Really good. And yeah, it's not perfect. But I think they're getting help. They're hopefully going to be getting some guys back. And ultimately, once it's all said and done, I think they've got a chance to be a very solid team. And, Ben Blackwell's played well defensively. I know he had some issues yesterday, but, that's a part of the game. And I think that, the odds are for the year, Blackwell's going to be good for Clemson. That's a hot spot to play shortstop. 803-450-86, text line, phone line. You can be a part of the program anytime, any place, anywhere. William Qualkenbush set to join the program coming up in hour number 2. And we always appreciate each and every one of you being a part of the program. I'll tell you what else we'll do in hour number 2. We'll take a deeper dive into the NCAA tournament. Rick Barnes and the Tennessee Volunteers winning the SEC championship. Oh, man. Mike Young and Virginia Tech winning the ACC championship. Oh, man. Will Wade out at LSU. Oh, man. Clemson connections abound everywhere. We'll hit a quick break. We'll come back with more. William Qualkenbush joins us right after this on the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set!
Just call me Swanny.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
It is hour number 2. That's drive time right here on the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan with you again. Thank you to Brad Owens, Director of Baseball Operations up at Clemson, for joining us just a few minutes ago. And we do appreciate our buddy William Qualkenbush for hanging out with us here today. You can follow Qualk on Twitter at Qualk Talk. And Qualk, from time to time, you and Brad Owens have done a little color commentary and a little play-by-play together, man. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Swanny, he's one of my favorites. I know he's from your neck of the woods, and we were supposed to do a game together last week. It got rained out, and I don't think we're supposed to work together the rest of the year. Maybe that changes. I need a little more Brad Owens in my life. I gotta say, I need it, man.
Man, he is a great guy, and it's crazy because his sister is a year younger than me. I remember the day he was born because it was this big event because we all went to the same daycare, and it's a small town. I mean, there's like 6 kids at daycare. Me, Brantley Owens, and this was the first new child. Like, this was the new arrival that was going to be with us soon. It was like some excitement at the daycare.
It's like when you grow up in small churches. I've been in small churches, Swanee, and a new family comes and it doubles your children's church. I totally understand what you're going through there. So I definitely feel that.
Brad and I talked about the baseball team at length, and certainly I do want to stay in that genre here as it is baseball season, but the NCAA tournament brackets are out, so we'll get to those momentarily. All right, the baseball team, 14-0 to start the year. They finally stumped their toe yesterday. Still a quality Northeastern team. We knew that a week ago when we talked about the matchup forthcoming. But what have you learned about this Clemson Tiger team as another week has gone by?
Well, I think they found other ways to win. Look, they lost yesterday, but it was a day where they didn't get really any break. The balls that fell in for the other guys. They did not play particularly well defensively, and they lost. But they've gotten increasingly better starting pitching from their Saturday and Sunday spot. I think there was this. I think most people that watched them assumed that Nick Clayton would cede that role to Billy Barlow by this point or around this point based on the way they were throwing earlier just a couple weeks ago. And Clayton really threw the ball great yesterday. I thought Nick Hoffman was fantastic as well. Obviously, Mac Anglin. And you know what? They're doing it without all their guys. Jeffrey Gilbert's got a little bit of a shoulder issue going on. He's not thrown the past couple of weekends. Didn't see Alex Edmondson this weekend. Not sure what's up with him. But those are two of your best three bullpen guys. They got great relief outings from Jay Dill at times. He wasn't great on Sunday, but he threw well Friday. Jackson Lindley pitched fantastic this weekend. You look up and down. There's young guys, there's old guys coming into these roles, and I think that's big time. And the other thing is they are doing all of this with Caden Grice mired in a terrible slump. He hasn't seen a hittable fastball in weeks, I don't think. And when the couple times that he has seen a fastball, it's either out of the zone or he's been expecting a change-up and they snuck it by him. To me, like Dylan Brewer, he's put together better at bats, but he's another guy they need to get going. If you had told me that they'd be 14-1, that Caden Grice would be far from their best hitter offensively, if you told me that Hoffman and Clayton had not been, had pitched okay, but it had not been had not had their roles taken by freshmen, and you told me that the bullpen was missing two of their three guys, I would have told you were crazy at this point. And I think that was Monty Lee's message yesterday too, is that, look, he said, I'm proud of this team. I'm proud of the way that they played. I'm proud of the way that they've had to come together to win some of these games. That's the lesson you take from it. Has it been the hardest schedule Clemson's ever seen through 15 games? No. Have they played vintage South Carolina, vintage Indiana? No, of course not. But there aren't many teams who have 0 or 1 losses left. I mean, Virginia had to play 2 yesterday. They lost their 15th game. Purdue didn't play their 15th game. They may well lose. I think they play tomorrow. I can't remember who they play. They play somebody tomorrow at home, but they may well lose their 15th game. It is freaking hard to win every baseball game. It's hard enough to win baseball series, Swanny. I think that is the point that you take away from this, is that bottom line, in a sport where it's really hard to win, they have found many different ways to do so when not everything's clicking on every individual day.
Yeah, I tend to feel the same way. And sort of watching this group, I think that's a strength, right? Because what you've seen at this point, it feels like is when, the old saying, if the left hand don't hit you, the right hand will. And that's kind of what's happening right now. And I don't think we've really seen this team play nearly their best baseball. And that's the other side of the coin, because Dabo Swinney talks about this all the time in football, right? Like, you want to play your best football at the end of the season. And it feels very much like that for this Clemson baseball team, that if they can continue to get better and better, obviously some daunting teams coming up, Miami most notably this weekend. But doesn't it feel like to you that if they play their best baseball, they have a chance to be a lot better than I think a lot of people projected?
Well, I would agree. And look, if things go well, they've set themselves up to do what you just said, to peak at the right time. And think about what's happening now. We're talking about guys like Brewer and Grice who have not gotten locked in yet. We're talking about transfers in Tyler Corbett and Benjamin Blackwell, who have been good, but you feel like they're just scratching the surface. They're just kind of getting their feet wet a little bit. You're going to get Will Taylor back. Some of these freshmen are probably going to hit the freshman wall, but you've got Gilbert, who's on the mend right now. He's going to be fresher. You've got Edmondson, who's not been used. He's going to be fresher. You look at offensively, when some of these freshmen, a couple of these young guys maybe hit a bit of a wall. If Max Wagner comes back to earth a little bit, or something like that, if Cooper Ingle starts to tire a little bit behind the plate, then you can really bank on the ascendancy from guys like Grice and Brewer. So I feel like this is a team where, because of the way, as you talked about, the way that they're winning, it's not just winning games, but it's the way they're doing it. And maybe even more importantly, the way they're not doing it right now that you assume they will do in the future, that gives you the ability to lengthen your hot streaks. Because if there's one thing we've learned, Swanny, if you are relying on freshmen in college athletics early in a season, you know that you're not going to be able to rely on them all throughout. You've got to have some veterans step up for when they hit that wall. And some freshmen hit it and stop. Some freshmen hit it and push through. But when they hit it, you've got to keep winning. You got to find a way to keep winning. And so I think that's the hope with a guy like Grice, for example, who's dealing with a little bit of pressure. I think mentally he's having a hard time right now dealing with what's coming at the plate. He just cannot, for whatever reason, hit a changeup. He didn't have a real issue hitting him last year, but he is right now. If he figures that out, even if you get some regression from some guys who have busted out of the gates here, look out, because he takes this lineup up to another gear. You look at guys like Jonathan French, Wagner, who I talked about. They've been guys that you didn't expect this from. You expect some from, but you didn't expect this from. And so they found a way to carry it. A guy like Tyler Corbett. Yesterday, Clemson didn't hit worth a doggone. He had 4 hits, for crying out loud. So it's going to be hard for a pitcher to come in and get everybody in order the way that Northeastern's guy did yesterday. It's going to be hard for you to do that without some outliers who are able to beat you. And that's a problem for the ACC. It's going to be a problem for Miami coming up this weekend in the big series.
You're right. The Scotty kid this past weekend, or Sunday, I guess yesterday, was sharp for Northeastern. All right, let's talk about this, Qualk. The NCAA tournament, obviously the brackets are out, but news out of Columbia today, just a little bit ago, that Frank Martin is going to be relieved of his services as the men's basketball coach. I know you don't focus on South Carolina on a regular basis, but I'm sure that you talk about him quite a bit. Your thoughts on just 5 seasons after taking the Gamecocks to the Final Four in a surprising run, the potential changeover in Columbia?
Well, I will say this. I don't think anybody expected South Carolina to return to the Final Four. I do think that in the immediate aftermath, whether it was the next season or using your recruiting capital that you now have from getting to a Final Four, you thought that this program would at least get back to the NCAA tournament. The fact that they haven't meant that Frank Martin was on a hot seat. I was a little bit surprised they didn't get an NIT berth, honestly, the way they were playing down the stretch. A couple of their quality wins that they got. I think it hurt them to lose to Mississippi State in the SEC tournament last week. But you expected them to build on that success. One great year does not a program make. I said at the time, South Carolina fans should enjoy it, but the reality is that they went on a miracle run, and they did not back it up with anything but what we already saw. And in some ways, it's very similar to the end of the Dave Odom era. I don't know if people remember this, but Odom won back-to-back NIT championships. And that's nice, but ultimately you got to get to the tournament. Like, you got to make the NIT mean something going forward. You got to use it as a springboard and not a resting spot. And it felt like that Final Four was the peak of the program. I think COVID did a number on the program because it obviously did a number on Frank Martin. And you wonder if he's going to take a year off. I've seen his name, even when he was the employed coach at South Carolina, I've seen his name potentially in the mix at Kansas State and maybe some other places that may come open. We also have seen that Georgia kind of went outside of the pool of available candidates, if you were, by getting Mike White from Florida. And
What?
so you wonder how that, you wonder how that changes the calculus for South Carolina, because you've got Mike Boynton, who's a former assistant who got Oklahoma State through their year in purgatory, so to speak. You wonder if he might make the jump and come home a little bit. You look at maybe, a guy like Dennis Gates, the Cleveland State head coach, certainly would be in the mix. I would think of Bob Ritchie from Furman would be in the mix, the guy who's done a really good job coaching. Maybe, a Wes Miller, somebody like that who's from the area, certainly not ACC, but from the area. Would he come back? So there are a lot of potential options here. You could go, if you want to go in the Odom tree, Ryan Odom, former UMBC coach. So I think there are some names that are intriguing. Certainly there may be some oddball candidates out there, some wild cards that Ray Tanner hasn't thought of. But I do think this is all about not using the Final Four to springboard and level up the program, and more about that being really the only thing to write home about in Frank Martin's entire tenure.
Wouldn't that be something if Frank Martin ends up back at Kansas State, from which he came to Columbia? All right, so let me ask you from a more closer to Clemson perspective. I mean, look, we're not in a necessarily a keeping up with the Joneses basketball program at Clemson, but does this news unfolding in Columbia affect in any way how not necessarily Clemson views Brad Brownell? Because look, what happened at the ACC tournament, Qualk? I just want the opportunity, right? I just want the chance to be Virginia Tech, and you had a chance to beat them and maybe beat them. Nonetheless, does that put any more pressure on Clemson's administration simply because, look, if Carolina's getting rid of Frank Martin after 10 seasons and a Final Four run, does that heat things up a little bit here in Clemson, in your estimation, or is Clemson just still kind of on their own, island, so to speak, with how they're going to handle Brad Brownell?
All right, I'm gonna address this in two ways. I'm gonna tell you what is, and I'm gonna tell you what might be. Okay, from the information that I'm gathering from campus, they're not going to make a change this year. I think part of it has to do with PJ Hall. His relationship with Brad Brownell is really good. I'm firmly opposed to, you don't make a decision on a coach based on one player, but if that player probably has one more year left before going pro, you might make that determination. You also have a guy who's been to the Ncaa tournament now 2 of the last 4 times. It's been contested. That's a pretty good high watermark, just in a 4 or 5 year period in the history of Clemson basketball. So you're going to get one more chance to run it back with those guys next year, particularly if Hunter Tyson comes back. It should be a highly competitive team that should expect to go to the Ncaa tournament. And if Brad Brownell comes back, which I expect, it will be Ncaa tournament or bust. I don't think there's any questions about that. I think that'll be pretty clear across the board based on the chit chat that we're hearing. Now, as far as the keeping up with the Joneses stuff, I tend to agree. Look, if Clemson did make a move, Dennis Gates would have been high on my list. He's a guy that spent time at Florida State. I thought he was in the mix at Georgia. He may get in the mix at LSU. He potentially could get in the mix at South Carolina. Other jobs that come open, Louisville and LSU I just mentioned, but Maryland also, like those are in there. To me, whoever takes those jobs, a decent job is going to open up. And so if you're Dennis Gates, you're going to have opportunities, I would think. Now, Cleveland State didn't go to the tournament. They kind of squandered an opportunity in their conference championship up there in the horizon to be able to make it. But that's a guy with an ACC pedigree as an assistant coach. He's been a Power 5 assistant a bunch of places. And to me, that's the kind of guy that Clemson could go for. If South Carolina goes for him, Clemson doesn't get the chance. And so from that standpoint, you do want to try to strike while the iron's hot. You don't necessarily want to get into a competitive situation with teams that maybe you feel like you're better than, or teams that you'd like to exceed. And maybe Clemson doesn't want to try to swim in the same pool as South Carolina. Maybe there's a pool of candidates. It doesn't matter what they're doing. Maybe you want to differentiate yourself a little bit and align yourself more with some of the upper echelon ACC powers. Because here's what I know. This coaching cycle in men's college basketball is going to be dictated by the SEC. There are 6 jobs already open in the SEC.
It's wild.
The ACC is basically going to be Buckus, right? So the ACC, this is not going to be an ACC coaching cycle. It's going to be an SEC coaching cycle. Now, you could be the only one, or you could wait till some of your peers are out there making moves. I think this has to do with Graham Neff maybe being a little bit patient, maybe trying to give one more shot to get to the tournament next year and build something a little bit more consistent. And I don't think Georgia and South Carolina are going to change his calculus much, if at all.
William Qualkenbush with us here all day Monday afternoon. All right, Qualk, speaking of calculus, if you will, have you extracted the brackets, carried the exponents? I mean, what are we looking at from an NCAA tournament standpoint later this week, in your opinion?
I don't know, man. I got nothing. I hope somebody can give me some advice. Look, I will say this. I think there's been a lot of hand-wringing about a couple things. The Tennessee-Duke 2-3, a lot of hand-wringing about that. You've had some hand-wringing about Texas A&M being out of the bracket.
Yeah.
And, maybe a team like Wyoming or something like that coming in. Here's the bottom line, okay? I have no issue with seeding a team like Duke over a team like Tennessee, even though Tennessee is better, and certainly you can look at resume for 2 reasons. One, because seeding should be based on a season-long resume. Now, I think Tennessee's got a better resume than Duke, but I think they're a little bit more similar than actually the talent level of the teams, right? The second thing is, if we did everything based on the predictive metrics, then the unpredictability of the tournament goes away. I love the fact that the tournament is unpredictable. Some of that has to do with teams being poorly seeded. You're telling me that Virginia Tech, who just won an ACC championship and is a top 25 or 30 team by every metric, you're telling me they're an 11 seed? Are you kidding me? That's dumb. But we can factor that in, and maybe we can get a little bit of a leg up on our buddies in the pool for our bracket. That's what this is about. Now, I will also tell you that I felt like one of the bad things about it, relative to, let's say, the women's tournament or even the baseball and softball selection shows, or specifically the football playoff, is that it seemed like it didn't matter one iota what happened in these conference tournaments. It's like they turned everything off on maybe 2 weeks ago and didn't watch anything. You're telling me Texas A&M was 9-9 in quad 1 and quad 2, Swanny. Notre Dame was 4-10. You're telling me Notre Dame got in with ease and Texas A&M didn't make it? As a runner-up in the SEC, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it from a resume standpoint. I'm not buying it from a recent performance standpoint. I think conference championships ought to matter in seeding. I think your performance in your conference tournament, not that it should dramatically outweigh, but I think they should be significant data points. And what I think the committee did is it basically lumped them as one of 30, 35, whatever it was, data points, as if they mattered almost less than a game in November or December that you've had to look at for a long time. And I'm just not sure that should be the case. I think the committee's gone too far in the direction of rewarding non-conference, rewarding what you do in the early season, and almost not even caring about what you do in March. I think that's a mistake.
Qualk, less than a minute, real quick. Should I pick Gonzaga to win the national title? I have to know.
I would say they have a decent run. I'll tell you the one seed I'm intrigued by is Kansas, because they have a lot of what I would consider to be overrated or overhyped teams in their bracket in that middle part. I think that's an unpredictable bracket where you could see a lot of madness around the one seed, but you could also see a team like Creighton beat them. I think Gonzaga has a fairly simple road, fairly straightforward if I look at it. The one thing about Gonzaga is in their quadrants, they will have to face either Arkansas or UConn, who are two of the hottest teams in the country that could give them major problems. I think that because of that, the matchup in the Sweet 16 and even the 4-5 with UConn and Arkansas, I think that's the toughest bracket for me to predict as it sits right now.
Qualk, buddy, always appreciate you, and talk to you next week.
Thanks, Swanny. Always good to be with you.
William Qualkenbush on the Monday with a break. Stay with us. Rolling along with you, Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan on the Monday. Thank you to William Qualkenbush for joining us just a few minutes ago. Love catching up with him. And, I mean, it really has been a wild weekend. Will Wade out at LSU. Maybe no surprise there given the incidents that surrounded his time there and the allegations and everything that came out. But the timing of it all, I think, was unique because you kind of got this point where you thought, well, maybe nothing's ever going to happen. And Will Wade gets LSU into the NCAA tournament, and then, boom, gone. What's next for Will Wade? Good question. He is a Clemson graduate. If you did not know that, was at Clemson back when Brad Brownell was at Clemson, when Oliver Purnell was at Clemson, followed Shaka Smart, and ended up being the head coach at VCU after Smart left for Texas. And he gets the job at LSU. And the NCAA's infractions group said that LSU men's basketball program compiled 7 level 1 violations and a level 2 violation. Includes detailed and brazen attempts by Coach Will Wade and his staff to break the rules. The notice alleges that Wade cheated even after knowing he'd be in the crosshairs when a federal basketball investigation came to light back in 2017. LSU fired Will Wade and associate head coach Bill Armstrong. The current head coach, or the interim head coach there, is Kevin Nickelberry. Nickelberry was an assistant at Clemson at one point. He is the lead guy there on the Bayou now. The notice of allegations against LSU was a 17-page document that portrayed Will Wade as a, quote, according to ESPN, bumbling, lying, and sloppy cheater who left troves of receipts. Will Wade apparently seemingly admitted to pay hush money via text in an allegation of $300,000 cash payment by an assistant coach. So, what will happen from the standpoint of Will Wade and LSU moving forward? I would guess LSU obviously is probably going to have to deal with the sanctions that come against the school, and how that affects who they bring in would be a big deal. And then on the flip side, who's going to be willing to take the baggage of Will Wade on? Wade at one point was a rising star collegiately, and now with this surrounding him, who knows? I will say Bruce Pearl at Auburn, who had now not necessarily improprieties of this extent in his previous stop at Tennessee, may very well be the poster boy for an opportunity for Will Wade, unless, again, something comes up with the program at Auburn at some point. Now, other coaches like Rick Pitino, who had the recruiting improprieties at Louisville. He's coaching now at Iona, small school, no doubt. Sean Miller, who was a part of this whole FBI investigation, is not currently coaching, but his name continues to come up. So it's not as if we haven't seen the coaches who have been through similar situations make their way back. Will Wade, however, given this, in light of these new events, or in light of the firing, will probably have to work his way back up, one would expect, to get a clear name. I mean, he certainly shouldn't have to work. If you got the kind of money he's probably been paid, you can just sit on your rear end. Heck, for that matter, go work in a studio, Will, if they'll have you. I mean, I saw Pete Gillen, for crying out loud, the former Virginia coach, on CBS's CBS Sports Network's coverage of the NCAA tournament. And Pete Gillen hasn't coached basketball collegiately since 2005 when he was at Virginia. So it's not as if you've exactly got to have a huge, what's the word? A recent run to still be relevant. I mean, Will Wade, young, could talk the game, get paid, and not have to worry about any of the off the field stuff that took place under his watch, or off the court stuff that took place under his watch at LSU. And finally, speaking of LSU, one of the funniest tweets I saw this weekend, and I can't remember if I actually retweeted it or not, but there was a photo that somebody put out, a meme, I guess, that somebody put out, freight_train 13. And I don't even know who this girl is walking. It's a lady walking, like strutting. 3 photos of her strutting. And the tweet said, the original tweet said, the NCAA says that for 8 years, LSU's football and basketball lacked institutional control. And this guy, freight_train 13, tweeted, Dabo on his way to pick up the 2019 national championship trophy that LSU's about to vacate. I had to chuckle. I mean, wouldn't that would be the awful. I mean, that would be awful if you're LSU. I mean, yeah, you get the benefits of winning, but can you imagine if the golden scepter gets yoinked out of your facility? Oof. What hurts worse, losing the Golden Scepter or getting it yoinked right out of your facility? I think it's a legitimate question. Will it happen to LSU? Who knows? But we'll keep our eyes on it for sure. We'll hit a break. Stay with us for more as we take a look at the NCAA tournament brackets after this. Closing in on the final segment here on a Monday afternoon, the NCAA tournament right around the bend. Won't be long till things get up and running. And I got to tell you, I'm not excited about it. I don't love the play-in games. I don't love the first four. We got 2 first four matchups kicking up tomorrow, 6:40 on True TV. Think about that. They can't even, True TV. Texas A&M Community College, a 16 seed, battling Texas Southern, a 16 seed, to get into the tournament. Yeah, I said it. The winner of that matchup will take on Kansas. Then at 9:10, you've got Indiana taking on Wyoming, also on True TV. And the winner of that matchup, Indiana-Wyoming, will face the 5th seed, St. Mary's. Those are 2 12 seeds facing off. That's all starting tomorrow, and I think it's utterly ridiculous. Then on Wednesday, Bryant will take on Wright State at 6:40 on True TV. The winner of that game will take on Arizona. And then the 11th seed Notre Dame Fighting Irish will take on the 11th seed Rutgers Scarlet Knights at 9:10 on True TV. And the winner of that ball game will face off against Alabama, the 6th seed. So that's what it looks like from that standpoint. Let's not forget Notre Dame was a 2 seed in the Atlantic Coast Conference tournament, yet are having to play their way into the NCAA tournament. I don't, it's tough to make sense of anything. That's one that's really weird because other teams in the ACC, like North Carolina's not playing their way in. And I know you're technically in, but do you feel in Notre Dame? I didn't think so. Virginia Tech's not having to play their way in. They obviously won the ACC tournament, but you could still win your tournament and get put in the play-in game, right? Miami. I mean, all these teams behind Notre Dame in the Atlantic Coast Conference tournament, yet Tim Barret's Fighting Irish having to fight their way in to what I would label as a legitimate spot in the NCAA tournament, a spot where I will pick you until then, or at least give you a chance to be picked. Also, talking about a weird layout, how about the South region has no Atlantic Coast Conference teams? Not a single ACC team in the Southern region of the NCAA tournament bracket. That's pretty wild, quite frankly. You got 2, North Carolina and Virginia Tech in the East. Why couldn't you put the Hokies in the South or North Carolina in the South? I mean, you got an ACC team in 3 of the 4, but you don't have anybody in the South. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but whatever. 803-450. Nobody paid me to put the schedule together. Nobody paid me to rack them up. And then on Thursday, that's when the fun really begins. 12:15, the first tip. The 11th seed Michigan Wolverines taking on the Colorado State Rams on CBS. That's what kicks it off. Now, who do I think wins the NCAA tournament this year? I kind of fall in line with Qualt. Like it's wide open. But I tend to lean in on experience and pain. And this Gonzaga team a year ago was expected to go and win it all by most people, and they couldn't do it. And remember Clemson, after losing to Alabama the first time in the national championship game in 2015, there was a drive and a determination that those guys had the following year that was not going to be stopped. And Clemson ultimately, when they had the ball in their hands late the following year, put together the game-winning drive. They didn't get in their own way the way special teams plays and blunders against Notre Dame did in 2015, and Clemson brought home the title. Now, it is much harder to project the NCAA tournament because you have to win 6 games. But one would believe, just looking at their bracket, that Gonzaga is going to have a heck of a chance based off of a couple of things. First off, I think the Zags get into the Sweet 16 with relative ease. I don't see Georgia State being a threat, Boise State or Memphis. So I think Gonzaga is going to book them a Sweet 16 bid. Now, the possibility that they face Arkansas or UConn doesn't feel extremely daunting to me, especially given Chet Holmgren and the arsenal that he brings at his size on the defensive end, running the ball down the court in space. He is a freakishly talented kid. So that, to me, would further push them into the Elite Eight. And at that point, you're most likely dealing with Duke, Michigan State, Texas Tech, or Alabama. And Duke, to me, has felt vulnerable, and I'm not even sure the Blue Devils will be there. And if they do, I don't know that they've got the horses to beat Gonzaga. So that would put Gonzaga into the Final Four. And I think that that's going to be the driving force behind Gonzaga. I think, one, they're going to win their region, and they're going to go into the Final Four ready to roll. And I don't think they're going to blink after what happened last year. I think they're going to be focused. I do like Gonzaga. I think it's a great story. Not as good as it once was, but I think redemption is a big conversation this year for the Zags. Final segment next.
What have you done for me lately? It's a fair question. Just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Don't forget history. Lucky for us at Clemson, the answer to the questions, what have you done for me lately, and what have you done always, are the same. We win.
Final segment on a Monday afternoon. Lawton Swan, Clemson Sports Talk. Thank you to our guest today, Brad Owens, Director of Baseball Operations up at Clemson University. Also joined by William Qualkenbush as well. Follow Brad on Twitter at Brad Owens41. Follow Qualk on Twitter at Qualk Talk. Now, a couple of final little news notes, if you will, here for you on a Monday afternoon. And look, I know we didn't go extensively into the NCAA tournament bracket. That's all right. We got days left, and we'll also know more about it as teams get filled. Because you know how I feel about that.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Yeah. So let's not even talk about it. Let's just pretend like the first four doesn't really exist. It's all about keeping me happy, right? All about keeping me happy. Nonetheless, yeah, I think there are some interesting matchups. Obviously, You look around the country, some of the snubs, Texas A&M, boy, the folks in Aggie land were hot and bothered around the collar about that one. But no NCAA tournament for Clemson and/or South Carolina, no NIT for Clemson and/or South Carolina. The year has come to a conclusion for both teams. South Carolina firing, according to reports. Let me see if there's anything official out yet. Firing Frank Martin. Martin led the Gamecocks to the Final Four just 5 seasons ago. And he is gone. Also, for Braves fans, looks like the Atlanta Braves are adding Matt Olson, first baseman, which could signal the end of Freddie Freeman's time with the Braves. We'll see if that indeed does come to fruition. I saw that news note, and I know we got Braves fans out there. The Charlotte Football Club, Charlotte FC, the new MLS team, dropped to 0-3 as they lost against the Atlanta United yesterday. I can't wait to go, though. I can't wait to go see the Charlotte FC. I got to get one of the scarves, man. Their scarf says something along the lines of for the crown or in the name of the crown or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the scarf says, but yeah, I am in on that action. And then, of course, over the next couple of days, we'll talk about the NCAA tournament. By the way, the Carolina Panthers and the New Orleans Saints may be the top suitors for former Clemson Tiger quarterback Deshaun Watson. Watson had essentially had the criminal charges cleared. And again, I don't even like talking about this because I'm not a lawyer and I'll probably say something dumb. Civil cases certainly could take place, but Watson now, it appears, getting closer to being back on the gridiron. Will it be in Charlotte? Will it be in New Orleans? Will it be in Cleveland? Will it be in Pittsburgh? I mean, there have been a lot of names. Seattle, a lot of names surrounding DW4. We'll see what happens with him. And then Tom Brady stayed retired about as long as a box of French fries from McDonald's stays warm. Tom Brady over the weekend making the decision to unretire from the NFL, and he comes back. So what was he at? A month? Got home. What happened? Couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle being a dad. This is tough. I got to get out of here. I just can't handle these big homes with $1 million mansions and children. I got to go back to work. Tom Brady, like some of you guys who, some of you guys have been working 35, 40 years on the job. You're ready to hang it up. And somebody says, well, Marv, when you hanging it up? Oh, gosh, I don't know. I just don't know if I can. I don't know what I'll do. I don't want to do nothing. I got to stay busy. They say if you don't stay busy, you die. Tom Brady must have read that on the internet. If you don't stay busy, you'll die. Brady put out a tweet and said, quote, these past 2 months, I've realized my place is still on the field, not in the stands. That time will come, but it's not now. I love my teammates. I love my supportive family. They make it all possible. I'm coming back for my 23rd season in Tampa. Unfinished business. Tom Brady. You got me, man. You talk about surprising. No doubt. I thought for sure TB would be hanging it up. Instead, he's back. I mean, I guess if Michael Jordan can retire twice and come back, Brady can do it once. I mean, can you be the GOAT without unretiring? Like, that's probably, like, if you were a GOAT, you'd have the GOAT handbook. And probably somewhere in the GOAT handbook is the retire, unretire portion of being a GOAT. The GOATs can do it. The average Joes, you cannot. You are not allowed that. You don't get that leniency. You think they let me unretire? Like if I walked into the suits today at iHeart and said, fellas, I'm done here. And then a month later, I come knocking on the door. Hey guys, about that. Yeah, I'd like to return. That's about how it'd go. We got to get out of here until tomorrow. As always, y'all take care now. And go Tigers.